Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transformational Storytellers show. This is where we learn from impact-centered leaders who harness the power of story to ignite transformation in the world. And today, I have the privilege and honor and delight to talk to Katherine. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, she's the founder of ADHD Life Simplified and its community, and she's a thriving ADHD mom of two boys. She's also an unconventional writer, and she combines the law, science, and lived experiences into positive messages about neurodiversity. As an ADHD simplifier, she supports mothers in embracing their ADHD with compassion. We need more of that in the world. Hi, Katherine. How are you doing?
Hi, Elina. I am doing wonderful and I am so excited to be here and just be able to be part of sharing our message together.
Yes. Oh, I am so excited. Katherine Lizardo, she is a genius. I love working with her, and I was just so heartbroken because when she came with this beautiful smile, like you see her just shining her light, I had no idea about the painful stories behind her smile and throughout her life. So, Katherine, would you be willing to share your transformational story with your audience, with our audience today?
Yes, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to do that. Storytelling is so important, especially with the message that I'm trying to share with others. And just a brief background, I was diagnosed with ADHD over 20 years ago, and that was before college. I mean, after college and before law school. So when I went to law school, that was really the first time that I had to deal with ADHD stigma, shame, and judgment. I needed accommodations in law school. I never got that in college or even when I was in school younger because I wasn't diagnosed. I didn't even know what ADHD was at that time. So after I got diagnosed, and this was again over 20 years ago, so ADHD was not well known. A lot of people have false information about it. People don't talk about it. It's very shaming. But when I went to law school, my classmates, law students, found out that I had ADHD because of my special accommodations during testing. So that was a big deal for them. Throughout my law school, every day, actually, there would be a group of law students who just made me feel unworthy because of my ADHD and judge me without even knowing who I am or even attempting to get to know me or find out. All they knew was that I was getting special accommodations for testing, and they call it an unfair advantage for me, even though it actually leveled the playing field for my ADHD brain. But they feel it's unfair for them, that I shouldn't be getting this again because of their limited information. And so, whenever I have to take a test in law school, it became very stigmatizing for me because the shaming and judgment didn't just start from or didn't just stay with the students. A few of the professors found out and had similar judgmental attitude, sadly, and even the people, the staff of the school. And so when I have to get my accommodation, which is having my own room for testing so I don't get distracted by everyone else, taking tests, typing, hearing the click, 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 click sound. That's my accommodation, to have a separate room. But they were believing that I was getting extra time and a lot of extra stuff that makes it unfair. But no, I wasn't. I didn't need extra time. What the misinformation about ADHD is, most of the time, having extra testing time is detrimental to us because there's no sense of urgency and all of that. But what happened was there was this one big incident in law school where I would be waiting for hours all the time, trying to wait for my own room. It would be like an hour or two after the testing should have started. So I'm all fatigued and stressed out. Everyone actually has finished their testing, and I still am waiting for my room. And then one time they just told me, "Oh, this is your room." And I enter, and it was a closet filled with dusty chairs and table that were just about to be thrown away. And they hastily put a chair and table right there for me in the middle of it and said, "That's where you're going to take your test today." I just started crying because I felt sorry for myself at that time. Like, this is how I'm treated. I waited 2 hours for this. So, I felt like those discarded desks and chairs, but I learned from all those stigma and shaming, and I just tried to get my strength back up and believed in myself and embraced my neurodiversity. So I graduated law school at the top of my class and went on and became a thriving lawyer. So now I am a seasoned lawyer. Like what Elena mentioned, I love it. And then I started my mission driven company to help other ADHD moms embrace their neurodiversity as well.
That's amazing. I just love how you were able to turn things around and to give that incident, but also all of the many other incidents in your life a different meaning that sparked that transformation. And I'm so grateful that you shared it with us. And you mentioned this earlier about how it's important to share our stories. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why do you believe that sharing our stories is key in life, but also, like you said, specifically to what you're trying to convey?
Storytelling does not come naturally to me because I have a lawyer brain. So it's very analytical. So I appreciate you, Lina, for helping me with learning how to actually tell my stories because I have a lot of stories, I realize. So I appreciate you. And storytelling is very important because it's a way for us to have self knowledge. I've had a lot of self knowledge and self reflection throughout my life. I mentioned in my TEDx talk that I've gone to therapy once a week for over 20 years. That's a lot of therapy, and I'm an advocate of therapy because in essence I realize it's storytelling. It's basically telling my story in a safe place with a safe person, my therapist. And that's when I realized, oh, my stories are validating and important. It makes me understand myself better. And then when I share it verbally, orally with someone else, like my therapist, it becomes a reality and validating and liberating. But
Mm.
I didn't know how to put that all in writing, how to share that with other people. So with your storytelling format, I really helped me um, analytically understand how to tell my stories effectively so that the message comes out. Because really, storytelling is about your message. For me, it's not about me, it's about the message behind my story. So I am able to now share whatever message behind that story is. So from stigma to strength, that's my message with my story about my special accommodation, that I found my strength with those dusty, musty chairs and desks that were left over and disregarded.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I love what you share. And of course, it's a delight working with you, not only in the gifts of pain, but for your TEDx talk, which is amazing. And I'm going to definitely link it in the show notes because it's definitely a must watch for everyone, whether you're a mom or whether you have ADHD or not. I think it's such a precious and relevant message today. So definitely link in that. And one of the things that that really resonates with me from your message, as you said, is that it is a mission driven message. And what I would like to talk about right now is, what is that mission? Like, when you think about being an advocate, being also an expert in this subject. I, sidebar, I did the math. I went on Google while you were speaking, and I did 2 times 52 times 20 to see how many hours of therapy you got. I was like silently doing this, and it's 2080 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And so not only are you an expert because of all of your research and all of your studies, but over 2000 hours of therapy. Like you said, it is a lot. It is something that allows you to learn so much. And so, with being an expert in this, with having lived experience, with really walking your talk, what is it that you love most about your mission and what you do in the world?
What I love most is the mission is about helping moms with ADHD embrace their neurodiversity, free from shame, stigma, and judgment, because that's what we've grown up with. That's what we've lived with and still do live with, even though ADHD has been talked to a lot. But embracing our neurodiversity also means being able to navigate our neurodiversity in motherhood with compassion. My global mission really is to reframe the narrative about mental health with compassion, not just saying, oh, what is mental health? We have to be knowledgeable about it. No, also, that's important. But I also want to add compassion with that so that we can really understand the other person. And what I love about that is whenever I help a mom with ADHD inside my community, and then they say, oh my God, thank you for not judging me. I
Mhm.
can feel that you're not judging me as I tell you these struggles that seem so simple for others. But for me, it's overwhelming and frustrating. It's a daily struggle, and you're helping me cope with that. That's when they start realizing that they can play up their strength and compensate for their weakness. That's what I mean about embracing ADHD. We have our strength and our weaknesses. So that's what I try to help ADHD moms with.
I love it. That is fantastic. And we need so much of that today. And especially as you said, the stigma is still there, even though we've made progress in this area. There's still a lot of stigma around it. What do you think is the reason why we still have stigma? Is it lack of compassion, or are there other factors that also play in this area?
Lack of compassion definitely is a part of it. That's why it's a big part of my mission. And people think compassion means, oh, I have to put myself in the shoes of the other person, but I don't have ADHD, so how am I going to do that, right? But what I tell people is you don't have to have ADHD to put yourself in that other person's situation. How about imagine the time when you were struggling with something, and even at work or even at home you were struggling with the laundry because your emotions were just, you just felt depressed and sad about something else, about your jobs, people losing their jobs, you're feeling that depression. Imagine how you felt that way. That's how we feel daily when we're trying to regulate our emotions. That's compassion in itself. You don't have to have ADHD. It's more of, remember that time when you felt overwhelmed and frustrated? That's how we feel every day. So just put yourself in that situation when you're dealing with someone with neurodiversity, and ADHD has a lot of comorbidity, meaning a lot of secondary diagnosis like autism, dyslexia, other learning challenges. So think about that, not just for an ADHD person, but also for any neurodivergent thinker.
I love it. I love it. That's a really tangible takeaway because I think that we all want to be compassionate. And, there aren't really classes about that in school. That's one of the reasons why I, have my own curriculum at home. And speaking of curriculum, you have a community that helps moms do that, embrace their ADHD with compassion. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to mention that. I have a community called Elite ADHD Mompreneurs. And what I do there is I share how I simplified my life with ADHD. Simplify, simplify, simplify is my mantra in life because ADHD can be too complicated. So I learned to simplify it after 2,080 hours of therapy, like you mentioned. My life. And so I want to share that with other moms as well, especially ADHD mompreneurs, because I'm an entrepreneur as well. So I want them to know that it's possible to simplify your ADHD life so you can stop surviving and start thriving. Because once you thrive with your ADHD, it's really beautiful. So I share simplified systems, simplified structures, and a much more compassionate approach to all of this inside my community.
That's amazing. That is so key. And I love it so much. And we don't have a lot more time, but I wanted to ask you, what is one thing that you hope that people get out of this conversation between you and I? And also, what is one thing that they can do to start embracing their own ADHD or someone in their lives who might be struggling? And I know that you have some symptoms that you have identified also about how to help yourself know whether you might be struggling with ADHD or not. So tell us a little bit about that. I know that's a charged question there, but I know that it will be very helpful for the audience.
Yes, what really comes to mind right now is a message that a friend of mine shared with me that I want to share with you and your audience as well. And that is, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because whenever you're dealing with another perspective, whenever you're dealing with someone who learns differently, it can be uncomfortable for both you and that other person. It's always uncomfortable for me, even if I'm talking to another person with ADHD, because ADHD is different for everyone. And
Yeah.
so I have to remember, I have to be comfortable right now that I'm feeling uncomfortable. Then, when I reach that level of self compassion, I can open up and share my story. And then, when they share their own story, whether they're neurodivergent or not, then I would feel uncomfortable about what they're sharing. And then I can be comfortable with that uncomfortable situation and be much more compassionate. So, if we can open our hearts and be comfortable with the uncomfortable, we can start the conversation. And that's where that starts.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Is there any kind of guidance to take them through this? Is there a question, an affirmation, or a mantra that they can say to get started with being comfortable with the uncomfortable?
Yes. And what you could do is just think in your mind, close your eyes and think in your mind, if you know you're going into an uncomfortable situation, that I choose love instead. When
Mm,
you're talking to someone and you know that it's gonna be uncomfortable situation, just remind yourself, I choose love instead. And then don't forget the love extends to yourself. We forget self-love. But when you say that, I'm not talking about love for the other person, but love for yourself.
that is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Catherine. This is fantastic. I loved our conversation. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. I am so happy that you were able to share your story in the Gifts of Pain. I'm going to be linking the TEDx talk for everybody to hear and also your community so that they can get started on that journey. And I appreciate you.
Thank you, Elena, and thank you for everyone who took the time to watch. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. See you next Thursday in the Transformational Storytellers Show. Goodbye, and I love you.